cool or interesting here or anything. It's weird. Anyway, today's video wasn't a proper vlog, so you're getting two today. This can be today's the earlier video about the Celtic identity. I'm really glad that you took it on board, even just to think about it. And so thank you for the positive comments on that. This is the regular, considered like whatever happening to reality, you know, exchange of information vlog. Just about everywhere I went today that was encrusted in Rona information documents a few weeks ago. And even when they've taken down the plastic perspex sheeting from the counter, are festooned now in Ukrainian flags. There's Ukrainian flags all over Ireland now. People's homes, on walls. They're even trying to conflate the independent struggle of Ireland with the protection of Joe Biden's biolabs in Ukraine. Now, it's very interesting. Obviously, some NGO by the Irish government has been given money to buy tens of thousands of Ukrainian flags, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was a special Irish government jet that flew from China, from some sweatshop, with like tens of thousands of yellow and blue flags in it to Ireland to be distributed willy-nilly around the communities. And, you know, you're not going to say some nice lady shows up who's employed by an NGO and hands you a blue and yellow flag. For the 4 little babies in Ukraine. You're not going to say no. They probably might even employ Ukrainians to do it. I don't know. But it's just, they're all everywhere now. They've all obviously been distributed or handed to the local Tidy Towns Committee or something like that to hand out. But it's amazing to see the seamless interchange between the Rona psychosis and this Ukrainian psychosis. Now, this is actually kind of darker in lots of ways. Even though we had a police state for the last 2 years with the Rona, we've got something very different now. There's absolutely no reason for any person living outside of that part of the world who doesn't have a family member or relative living there to really care about it. By care about it, I mean enough to want to do something with it, about it, to incorporate it into your life. The only reason the same ones who were branch Covidians are now branch Ukrainians is because they miss the sense of self identity that attaching themselves to a cause brought to them. You have to understand, huge numbers of people out there have nothing inside them. They're not even alive. They're barely sentient. They're barely sentient. And they know this. They have this intense sense of emptiness inside them, where people like us in the tribe don't, because we can take satisfaction in our friends, our family members, our hobbies, our music, our art, our creative forces, or the things that make us happy, our hobbies, anything, interest in movies, the things that give us a thing to, but they don't have that. They don't have that inside them, okay? When they go on holiday, they don't look at, say, a beautiful thing, a majestic sight, and go, wow, and feel, they just, oh, there it is, okay, bucket list. So when you have this, they have this emptiness inside them. And the only thing that cures that emptiness is an existential threat that they're going to die. They're going to die. And everything is designed to attach them to the cult of death. So, because it gives them a fear, a primal fear, that makes them feel something inside. Something, okay? Now, what is this I'm going to talk about this particularly about in males. In Western males, what drives this existential fear? cowardice. Okay, cowardice is the defining trait of the Western male today. We've seen that. We do. There's no doubt about it anymore. On a whole, of course, not men in our tribe are not like that, but I mean, as a whole, this is cowardice. Cowardice is the defining thing. They are terrified and addicted to death at the same time. It's almost like the thing that's about to kill them is the thing that turns them on the most. It's a very sadomasochistic kind of addiction. This existential crisis, and that's really in that terms of what it is. So the Rona gave them this 2 year long sexual thrill or sense of heroism, of that they could take part in something that would kill them, but would also give them the power to judge others, and a fight, a completely superficial fight, by the way, that required no great dangers in order to distract from the fact that most of them are just sniveling little cowards. When the Rona was ending in this part of the world recently, these types were suddenly left in a void, an abyss. What now? What can I use to terrorize me that I can then use as an emblem or a motif of which to demonstrate virtuous righteousness upon others, while at the same time feeling and feeding the frenzy that I'm about to be wiped out? And that's, of course, we know now it's Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin has replaced the coronavirus. It's the existential threat that they also love, because it brings them to the cusp of annihilation in their own minds now. And some of them, it's just merely being in the office talking about what a head case Putin is, and being an expert on what's going on in the Ukraine, when they haven't got a clue other than what the demons in TV. I want to talk about the demons in TV also have told them to believe, and which gave them their happiness during the COVID thing. Their pleasure, their sadistic pleasure. Now, that ranges from idiots in the office place who think they're experts on it, to morons who are heroes on the internet attacking people, to other morons who put up a Ukrainian flag as a virtue signaling thing. And then the extreme end of that are the ones who are now on their way to think they're going to be fighting the Russians in the Ukraine. They're heroes. We've already seen lots of them in your own country. The local loser appearing in the local paper dressed in combat saying, I've got nothing to live for, even though he probably has a couple of kids and a wife or someone that needs taken care of at home. But he needs the feeling of extreme rush, of existentialism that he became addicted to during the corona thing. It's now been coming out that it's very highly likely that the so-called International Brigade, and this is as fucking dark as it gets, are Polish and Russian gangsters who are luring idiots to Poland to rob them and kill them. It's already been happening. They're arriving in this, but this is coming from on the ground, that they're going to Poland and they're being told beforehand by gangsters and criminals. They're saying to them, get up, bring all the cash you have. There's no ATMs here. Bring all any new high-tech equipment. Buy new high-tech. You're going to need everything. Bring all the stuff with you and dress in combats, and we'll pick you up at the airport and drive you to the border. What they do is they take them to a piece of waste ground somewhere or a field, and they machine gun them or shoot them in the heads after they've taken their money. And so these types are lots of them are being killed at the moment. And we're going to be told, of course, down the road they were casualties of war, but they weren't. They were murdered by gangsters, probably screaming for their lives. This is the horror of it. And they're told some of them have been selling their homes and selling their possessions, and told to bring as much cash as they can possibly carry in euros, pounds, or dollars. And they arrive at the airport and they go, I'm a friend, my friend, I am here for you. Yes, yes, we're going to go to fight Russians, go to fight Russians. Yes, yes. Get on the bus. Get on the bus with the English guys. Get on the bus with the German guys. Get on the bus with the American purple-haired ones from Portland. Get on the bus with them. We go fight them. We go fight the bastards. They drive into a piece of wasteland in the countryside in a field somewhere. Probably somewhere like there's an incinerator. And bodies can be easily just dumped somewhere and hidden. And they just shoot them and take their belongings off them, the cash that they were told to bring and the high-tech equipment. That's what's happening to them. According to their own, I saw it today, themselves, their own ones saying this. And so this is how stupid they are, okay? But it's also kind of what they want, because they've no meaning to their life. Now, these will be written off as fellas who died heroically fighting on behalf of the Ukrainian people. But that's not what happened at all. And also, the Ukrainian military does not want to fight alongside mercenaries. They wouldn't want them near them. It's an insult. If you're a professional soldier, you don't want someone who's like, a complete amateur right there next to you. But, they're driven by the need to be heroes and to feel brave and strong. And they don't really know, even the ones who are genuinely think they're going to fight in combat over there, they don't really know what they're going to be facing. They just want the attention. They want the local newspaper saying, Irish or British or local heroes heading off to the Ukraine to fight Russians. That's enough. And if they died in hours of that in a field somewhere in Poland after being shot and robbed, they don't care, because the lie of what happened to them fighting the Russians is enough to keep them happy. That's all they wanted. And you can see them, like I saw the gun guy outside the Ukrainian embassy in England going, I won't fight Russians in it. That's what we're up against. That's what's going over there. And I'm not going to say fuck them, because I think it's part of the dishonest. You see, we live in a world of, like I was talking the other day about all the Africans, and more and more photographs of dark-skinned people arriving as Ukrainian refugees. The dishonesty of it is what bothers me. And this dishonesty is rooted all the way back to the mainstream media, who's lying to us completely. Almost incessantly lying. And people don't live in a miasma of false information and mythologies that are created in press offices and government agencies on the fly, and in NGOs and things like that. And they actually believe it's all real. And if you present them with the alternative narrative, they will attack you. I've seen friends of mine online who would be like in the tribe but not be openly confrontational like some of us are, right? And they would just mention that as two sides to every story. Have you heard about Biden's biolabs in the Ukraine? And then they show them a story showing that that's all true, and US government officials admitting it. And they'd say something like, that sounds Russian. Or I saw another one where there was a video where they were debunking the facts, the so-called things like the ghost of Kiev who didn't exist, and all the tank that crushed the car was actually Ukrainian. It was crushing its own citizen, and it was an accident. It was a terrible accident. And the massacre of that island, whatever it was called, never happened. They surrendered and they were treated humanely. There was no fuck you and fighting to the death like what the media told us happened. Even when you showed them the app or things that we saw they were told were explosions in the Ukraine turned out to be video game footage and this kind of thing. Even when you showed them the proof, they go, I think this is from Russia. They don't want the truth. They want the rush. They want the existential rush, and don't take that away from them. And the media has coached them into this, has coached them very, very deeply into this. And this goes right, you see, people in their own country are possessed by a demon. And that demon is, in Ireland, RTE, in the UK, BBC, in Canada, CBC, in America, CNN. In every country, a demon called the mass media organization possesses the minds of everyone that they can get their hands on. And because they're all singing from the same hymn sheet now, it's a parliament of demons. You ever hear about like the 72 archbishops of hell and the 72, popes of the abyss and all the hierarchies of demons who work together? Well, this is what they all do. They work together to possess the planet collectively. And the only reason we have, and it's like John Waters said, the only reason we have conspiracy theorists is because we don't have any journalists. If journalism did its job, there wouldn't be any conspiracy theorists. It's as simple as that. Everything we're seeing is a pathological theatre of the absurd. What do we know for an absolute fact? There's only there's two things we know for an absolute fact about what's going on in Ukraine. Well, the first one is the Russians have definitely invaded. The second one is that Joe Biden's bioweapon labs were there creating incredibly dangerous viruses that were obviously targeted at Russia. They're the only two things that we can confirm. We can't confirm anything else. We just can't. It's as simple as that. We cannot confirm anything else. That's all we can confirm. So, based on those two things, what is really going on the ground there? Nobody knows. Does this mean I trust the Russian viewpoint more than the NATO viewpoint? No, not at all. They're all lying. They've all got their own agendas going on. And I'm seeing these dumb truthers saying things like, it's Putin against the deep state. No, Putin is a deep state in his own world as well. Putin is a dictator in his own world. And don't be choosing between this whole thing of like two evils, but there's also the concept I understand of, my enemy's enemy is my friend kind of thing. So we're learning about just how evil the Biden administration is in terms of this stuff. The best thing to do is switch the fucking TV off. Yes, we get stuff that comes through on social media, but get rid of your fucking TV. Get rid of it. If you have not figured out that thing in the corner, the gateway to hell is that rectangular box in the corner of your living room. That is people say, oh, where's there a gateway to hell? It's in your home, and it's a rectangular box in the corner of your living room. That's the gateway to hell. And that gateway to hell is what feeds the existential addictions of the average meathead normie, the average meat golem. They're fed that. And because their lives are empty, pointless, devoid of any real joys, they're just creatures of obligation and habit. They get married because, we were going out for a few years, might as well get married. They have kids because, everyone has kids. They don't actually sit down. I'd say most children in Ireland are actually born as a result of dating. It's the weirdest thing. It's like just about every Irish guy I know has women by at least two kids, and they came about as dating. They're too lazy and stupid to use contraception. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And yet, that's what drives them. The sense of nothingness, of emptiness. They can't relate to anything. They take no deep, great joys in anything except 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and God help the poor people of Rome. Pray for Ukraine. That's what keeps these going. There's nothing else. So you have to understand, it's very easy to get angry when you walk into these stores, into these businesses, and there's a Ukraine flag or someone's home. But know well that you have evolved beyond these people. And the average normie, meat golem, sheep, branch Covidian, whatever the fuck you want to call them, putting up a Ukrainian flag, putting up a Ukrainian flag this week while they took down the COVID poster should have no more effect on you than that of a dung beetle rolling a cow turd. That's what you're looking at. When you walk into a business and there's a Ukrainian flag there, what you're seeing is a dung beetle rolling a cow's turd. That's what you see. A dung beetle. A dung beetle doing its thing. So, and then there's a part of you who says, you reach into yourself and say, what the fuck is wrong with you? Can you not fucking see what's going on? You're being played here into giving your feelings to a place you didn't know was on the map last week. And there's all kinds of wars all around the world, and the only reason that you're obsessed with this one is because the media told you to be obsessed with it. And you have this frustration, but you'll never reach them. You'll never reach them. The best thing to do is not to say, fuck me, why can't they wake up? The best thing to do is watch the dung beetles rolling their ball of cow shit around. You have to look at them that way. That's what they're like. They cannot be helped. And when the Ukraine thing comes to an abrupt ending, and it will, you see, the Ukraine thing is being used to justify the high inflation right now, when it was the lockdowns that caused the high inflation. And the fallout and aftermath of this war, or whatever the fuck it is, explosions we'll say, will be used to cover up all the deaths from the jab. The Pfizer documents are out there. I'm sorry, if you have the 3 shots, you better start really taking care of your health now, big time, because you're in deep trouble. And they're still dropping dead, and it's all mysterious things. We can't figure out what's going on. It turns out now that there's now an excess of proteins in the brain. Here we go, folks. It's amazing, this stuff. A friend of mine in Germany posted it today. You know, the way I was saying that, one of the things I noticed after the first jab and then through the whole course was personality changes in people. They absolutely changed, okay? We've all noticed that, personality changes. And we look around the society, and those of us who are still purebloods or sanguine gnosis are looking at the rest of them going, what the fuck, these aren't humans. What happened to them? Well, it's come out today, and of course, it's a mystery. You know, they always say it's a mystery. They don't understand it. 2 things have happened to come to light in recent days. Generation X is dying at a colossal rate. Generation X has the highest mortality rate of any demographic group at the moment. And it only began after the boosters. I'll leave it at that. The other thing is, in Germany, virologists have been amazed by saying that human brains are now producing protein compounds, and they don't understand why. And it's only started since when? The foghorn leghorn. And one of them even made the very telling and profound comment that it said, I don't like this because I'd rather human brains produce thoughts than excess protein. This now explains the personality changes in so many of the jabbed. Their brains are producing, instead of producing new neural pathways and neuroplasticity, they're producing an excess of protein in the brain. And that's probably found in one of the Pfizer side effects. I'm sure it's in there. And they can't literally develop new thoughts. Or they can't. So therefore, they're only driven by animalistic impulses and instincts. And it's terrifying. It's terrifying to think, as Steve Bannon brought it up yesterday, that Generation X is dropping like flies. And it only started, the mortality, there is absolutely, you know, not enough undertakers now to bury everybody in many parts of the West now. And there's also a shortage of actual funeral organizations, and it's like, you know, when you can't buy a house because there's no property. Well, now it's almost impossible. It's getting really difficult to bury someone because undertakers are just flat out. And they're not burying old people. They're burying mostly Generation Xers. The ones who... Now, the Generation X ones are an interesting one because they were the first ones to have been programmed by MTV. Remember Rock the Vote? Which was basically should have been only vote for the Democrats. That should have been the real name for that. And you have like young people really care about politics and changes in this world and, you know, this kind of thing. Now, I just missed out on Generation X. I'm not saying all Generation X. I'm like just 2 years prior to it. But the Generation Xers, and there's lots of great ones too. I don't have a problem with them. But unfortunately, that's the generation that was raised with a sense of idealism from all kinds of pop culture, usually things like MTV. It's really dangerous what's going on out there. So we now have reached a crisis point now that the things like the Georgia Guidestones are actually fulfilling themselves, not through any great cull caused by an army sweeping through or eugenics, but they're doing it themselves. And you know something, it was always going to be that way. It was always because they were good. Remember, all this information of the vaccines not being tested, how dangerous they could potentially be, how rushed they were, none of this was hidden. None of this was hidden from anybody. This is the whole thing. When people used to say to me, "How can you say that? It's on the internet. Ah, it's fake news." No, it's on the British medical journal, The Lancet. Huh? Uh, 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 uh. Uh, that's bullshit. Where did you hear it? That's fake news. It's on John Hopkins' website. Uh, 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 uh. Oh well. They all went out and voluntarily got it. They all went out and voluntarily took it. Okay? So therefore, when push comes to shove, and they try to compare, the day, and this will come out one day, everyone involved can say, like, it was the spirit of the age, and nothing was hidden. Everyone knew the risks, and they still went and took it. It was this. We thought we were doing the right thing. It was the spirit of the age. We meant well, rushing through without the proper testing. It was the spirit of the age. Everyone was doing it. No, not every single one of us was rolling a ball of cow shit. Not any single one of us was a dung beetle. And you know what? We're not going to be rolling any balls of any shit, and we're not going to be a dung beetle ever. So you deal with that, because I got news for you. People who have been fooled by you in the past, some of them are actually finally trying to see it. But unfortunately, most won't. And your job is, I know it's painful when it's a family member, someone you love, but your job is not to become a dung beetle. Your job is to look down and go, that person I thought I knew was a dung beetle.